On the night of June 1, 2009, a state-of-the-art Airbus A330 took off from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, heading to Paris, France. 228 people were on board, families, business people, a couple on their honeymoon. The plane was one of the safest in the world. The pilots were experienced, the weather manageable. 8 hours later, the plane never arrived. No distress call, no warning, no trace on radar. It had simply vanished. And for nearly 2 years, no one knew why. This is the story of Air France Flight 447 and the terrifying 8 minutes that sealed the fate of everyone on board. It was May 31st, 2009, late evening. At Rio de Janeiro's Galeão International Airport, 216 passengers boarded Air France Flight 447. Along with 12 crew members, they settled in for what should have been a routine 11-hour overnight flight to Paris. The aircraft, an Airbus A330-200, was considered among the most technologically advanced passenger jets ever built. It had a flawless safety record, not a single fatal accident since its introduction in 1994. The flight crew was led by Captain Marc Dubois, a veteran pilot with nearly 11,000 hours of flying experience. Joining him were 2 co-pilots, First Officer Pierre-Cédric Bonin, 32 years old, and Relief First Officer David Robert, 37. For the first 3 hours, everything was perfectly normal. The plane climbed to cruising altitude. Passengers ate their meals, some watched movies, some slept. At around 2 a.m. UTC, Flight 447 was approximately 350 miles off the northeast coast of Brazil, deep over the Atlantic. At around 2 a.m. UTC, Flight 447 was approximately 350 miles off the northeast coast of Brazil, deep over the Atlantic. The plane was approaching a massive storm system, part of a weather formation called the Intertropical Convergence Zone. Inside those storm clouds, ice crystals, millions of them. And those ice crystals found a critical weakness in the aircraft. The Airbus A330 uses small external sensors called Pitot tubes. They measure airspeed by detecting air pressure. They are the plane's eyes for speed. That night, those tubes became clogged with ice. In an instant, the plane's autopilot received conflicting, unreliable speed readings, and it did exactly what it was designed to do. It disconnected. The autopilot handed control back to the humans. Captain Marc Dubois was not in the cockpit at that moment. He had stepped out for his mandatory rest period, leaving the 2 co-pilots in charge. What happened next would be studied by aviation experts for decades. At 2:10 a.m., alarms began going off in the cockpit, multiple warnings, flashing lights, a synthesized voice calling out alerts. First Officer Bonin took manual control of the aircraft. And here is where everything went catastrophically wrong. In a moment of panic, possibly startled by the sudden disconnection of autopilot, Bonin pulled back on the side stick. He pointed the nose up. This is the exact opposite of what you should do when a plane loses airspeed data at high altitude. The aircraft began to climb steeply. Airspeed dropped further, and within seconds, the plane entered what's called an aerodynamic stall. A stall, in simple terms, is when a plane's wings can no longer generate enough lift to stay airborne. The stall warning system, a loud, impossible-to-ignore alarm, began sounding. It would sound 75 times over the next 4 minutes. 75 times. The crew never identified it as a stall. Why? Because when the airspeed sensors gave bad readings, there were moments when the stall warning went silent because the faulty data suggested the plane was going too fast, not too slow. The system contradicted itself. The crew was confused, overwhelmed, and tragically, Bonin kept pulling the nose up even as the plane was falling. Robert, the other co-pilot, tried to push the nose down, the correct action. But on an Airbus, when 2 pilots give opposite inputs simultaneously, the system averages them. Neither action fully took effect. At 2:11 a.m., Captain Dubois rushed back into the cockpit. His first words, "What are you doing?" The co-pilot's answer was devastating. I don't know what's happening." The plane was now in freefall, falling at nearly 11,000 feet per minute toward the ocean. At 4,000 feet, one co-pilot finally called out, "We're going to crash." Captain Dubois' last words were, 10 degrees pitch attitude. At 2:14 a.m., Flight 447 struck the Atlantic Ocean at over 150 miles per hour. The aircraft was intact, no fire, no explosion, but the impact was unsurvivable. 228 people were gone. For days, no one knew what had happened. The plane had disappeared in a dead zone. No radar, no radio contact, no witnesses. Search teams found 50 bodies and over 600 pieces of debris within a month, but the crucial black boxes, the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, were missing. They were on the ocean floor, nearly 13,000 feet below the surface. For almost 2 years, Flight 447 remained one of the greatest mysteries in modern aviation. It took 4 underwater search missions before finally, in April 2011, a sonar system detected a large debris field. When underwater cameras reached it, investigators were speechless. There lay Flight 447, shattered, silent, 4 kilometers beneath the waves. The black boxes were recovered in May 2011, and when investigators finally listened to what was recorded, they heard the last confused, terrified moments of 3 pilots who never understood what was killing them. The crash of Air France 447 sent shockwaves through the entire aviation world. Airbus immediately mandated the replacement of all Pitot tube sensors across its entire A330 and A340 fleet worldwide. But the bigger change was in training. Before 2009, airlines had stopped emphasizing basic manual flying skills. After Flight 447, everything changed. Upset and recovery training became mandatory. Pilots are now specifically trained to handle high-altitude stalls and extreme situations. The lesson: automation is a tool, not a replacement for human skill. And when that tool fails, pilots must be ready. 228 people boarded that plane expecting to see Paris. Their story, and the chaos of those final 8 minutes, changed aviation forever. If you want to see more investigations like this, subscribe, stay safe, stay curious.